it has been quite the journey trying to make these cereal toppers, and I wanted to bring you an update on the latest progress. Alright, so for the cereal toppers, you can see them right here, the cereal dispenser. I initially got a STL online, I think it was from Thingiverse, for something that looked very similar to mine. But I quickly went down a rabbit hole. So I got a STL that was similar to this when I first started. And this was specifically for that user's cereal dispenser. It looked so similar, I just printed it out, tried to give it a try, did not work for me. And next thing I tried in the slicer, as I was just getting used to it, was I scaled it up. So I scaled up the sizing. That didn't work for me. Eventually, I wisened up. I got a caliper, a digital caliper. I started actually doing measurements of the diameter of my particular cereal dispenser, which helped a great deal. I noticed that my cereal dispenser is a lot rounder on the bottom. So let me see if I can show you that. And this is a great example of how you can sort of R&D your own models when you're fixing issues. So for instance, if you use the caliper here, you'll see it's about 4 millimeters in thickness, which did not match up to the STL here. What else? The other things I was able to do was get the total diameter of the inlay, that sort of thing. And it led me down a rabbit hole, like I said, of playing around with settings. So the first setting I played around with was using negative primitives. So that's when you take a primitive object like a disk or a square, for instance, and you use that as a negative space. So first I tried that, and this is the resulting build from that, made of ABS. As you can see, the rim that was in the initial build here is now gone. So when I tried that, I was able to see a little bit more success there, but it did not stay in there. What I realized I really needed was more of a plug sort of setup. So that's when I got a little bit more creative, looked for some better ways of creating that plug. And then I got to this solution here, version 3 or so. This worked a lot better, but I noticed that when I went to cover it up, there were still some gaps at the bottom. So the close to final build is adding a little bit of a lip right there to keep it airtight. So that is where I am so far in the build, and I think this is good enough to actually run. So that's what I'm printing out over here. And I'm pausing it for the sake of this video. I'm using a smooth plate. These plates, the bamboo textured, let's see if I can zoom out for a minute. The bamboo textured PEI plate, do not use this with your ABS unless you want something that's going to be very hard to get off. Use something smooth, no bumpy surfaces, and you should be smooth sailing. So that is what I'm printing out now. Second thing, since I'm printing on ABS, I put a layer of glue down to prevent any issues. And also the other tip I learned in the Bambuslicer was just scaling in a certain direction. So initially I was just scaling in all dimensions, but it's kind of useful to scale, like if you want something to be taller, just to scale in the axis that you needed. Using that in combination with different attributes like cut, cutting a object into different sizes is really helpful. So for instance, if I open up a project, a recent project like the, let's see, switching over to Orcaslicer now, which is fairly similar. So here, let me change the color so hopefully you can see it a little better. Okay, so I'm a fan of the original Jumanji series, and the Jumanji board right here, as you can see it's one of the most iconic props in movie cinema. There's several Jumanji boards online available for sale, through retailers, but it is not this design. It is not textured like this. It's just a print on a wooden box, whereas true replicas look more like the ones in the movie, like this one would, but they go for upwards of several $100s on eBay. So I thought this would be a great use of a 3D printer and using PLA wood. And that might even be a great Etsy product for anyone who's interested in making those to make a profit. So this is also a good example of using cuts, because one thing I noted about this object here is it is solid. So not only does it have these 4 legs that when you use a support, it just takes up a lot of time to print, this whole build is solid instead of hollow. So using a negative primitive here would hollow out the box, make it a lot easier, less filament to use, for instance. Printing it upwards like this helps out a lot too. But one thing I wanted to do was I just wanted the top. For instance, I could cut down some 2x4s to size and then just put this wooden top over it and varnish it all together, right? So to do that, using the new skills I have now, all I needed to do was go into Orcaslicer or your slicer of choice and cut it down to size. So cutting it along a certain axis, cutting it along the z-axis, I believe, or would that be, yeah, I'm just gonna go with z for now, but cutting along the vertical axis. You can see that I cut it down, and not only did this cut down the print time from literally maybe a day or two to just under 5 hours with my BQ Huracan. No doubt you could probably get it faster on the Bamboo Lab, but this may save someone a lot of time if they're trying to print these in mass for a print shop like Etsy. So this is just an example of how you can use the Bamboo Lab tool, Bamboo Lab slicer, and also the Orcaslicer to make the kind of changes you want to the STL files that you either download or make yourself without having to get into a CAD tool like Tinkercad. So these are just examples of how you can do that in a easy to use way. I'm looking forward to printing this one out in wood PLA fairly soon, and I may even post what that looks like in the results. But let me know, what interesting tips and tricks have you found with using your slicer, your Bambuslicer or Orcaslicer or Prusaslicer even, Would love to hear your comments below. And if you like this video, comment, subscribe. I want to hear from you. There's a lot of 3D printer aficionados out there, as well as 3D print shop owners, and I love that community, and I'm glad to be a part of it now. So, thanks for watching.